Hello, Internet, and thank you very much for tuning into the Rafay YouTube channel. And today we recently announced Rafay Certification Program, and we will be doing a hands-on live demo to walk you through to the step you need to take in order to understand how you able to be successful within our certification program. So, as platform engineering gains popularity, many companies are turning to self-service developer portals solution to empower developer and reduce their cognitive load. These solutions offers developers greater control over their work by enabling them to deploy their own infrastructures and system. Rafay uniquely, the Kubernetes platform, uniquely powers four key enterprise needs for Kubernetes: turnkey cluster provisioning and lifecycle management, multi cluster standardization and add on management, bimodal multi tenancy support with self service, zero trust based multi cluster access for DevOps and SREs for SREs. But the biggest problem in Kubernetes industry is not a platform engineering versus DevOps, is continues to be a skill set problem. And that's the primary reason why we announced the Rafay certification program. And today on live stream, Umar Hoodboy will be doing a live hands-on walkthrough and Q&A to help our customer understand and be able to perform basic Kubernetes cluster lifecycle management, achieve compliance and governance requirement, and achieve automation goals. Additionally, they can equip with ability to leverage Seraph-based services such as GitOps, Service Mesh, network policies, and more. And without any further delay, let me go to straight to Omar Hudbai, and he will be talking about more on that.
Hi,
Over to
Sam.
you, Omar. Thank you for joining. Can you give us a quick intro and what we're actually covering today?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Hi, Sam. My name is Umer Hudboy, and I'm the Director of Education Initiatives at Rafe. I'm running the training and certification program here at Rafe. And yeah, my background's in enterprise IT for over 2 decades. This is a fascinating challenge here running with Kubernetes. As you all know, it's so complex, but it's so important for application modernization. And one of the biggest challenges that enterprises are facing is how quickly not only can they bring their clusters and manage their clusters, but also to get training on it. I mean, this is a very, very complex area. And how do you go to rationalize it, and how do you actually get trained on it? So it's one thing to understand Kubernetes. It's quite complex. Rafi makes solves that problem by making it a lot more simpler. But then how do you actually learn Rafe? So that's why we came up with a standardized education program, which is our training program, and to reward the efforts of our customers who undergo this training, we also recently announced this certification program, the Rafe Certification Program, which, if my screen is being shared, I can just show it to you right now. It is on our website under company and then Rafe Certification. So that is a quick introduction to this certification program, which we kickstarted uh, a couple of weeks ago. Now, what I want to do is shift gears and show you the how we do this training for our customers, and this is it's offered in, of course, traditionally it's been a live instructor-led mode, but recently we've also kickstarted a self-paced mode. And what I want to show you is how we do this self-paced mode, not for any customer, obviously, but actually how we do this for internal employees, because internal employees also undergo the same training. So here I am, and hopefully my screen is being shared. This is how this training is, the self-paced training is offered to our internal employees. We're using the platform called Instruct, and for the self-paced mode, we have a total of 5 tracks. Now, what you're seeing on the screen in this red browser window, you see six tracks, not 5. And the reason is because the first 2 tracks, which is called track 1, Rafe Overview, is offered in 2 modes. There is a mode which is, for those who like videos, they can click on the first one, they can access the first one. The second one is in a slide format. And so I'm going to show you actually both of those. Track 1 is Rafay overview. It's for those who have never heard of Rafay, those customers of ours who have never heard Rafay and they're just getting started. It's lecture only. There's no labs. So that's why we have it in 2 different modes. And I want to show you, before I go into it, I want to show you what it actually covers. So track 1 has an overview, and then we go into a high level of what Kubernetes is, the control plane, the worker nodes, what are pods, what are replica sets, what are deployments, what are services, stateful sets, and then some of the challenges that enterprises are facing from a cost perspective, tenancy perspective. Just, Kubernetes is DIY, so when you're having to do everything on your own, how difficult and how challenging it becomes, how to scale it, those challenges, how to deal with cluster sprawl and drift. That means when you have a whole bunch of clusters which are like unicorn clusters, and but you need to governance, you need to standardize on it. So that's what this particular part is, that we call these challenges. And then we talk about managed infrastructure for Kubernetes. And then finally, about towards the maybe last 30% or so, we get into the introduction of Rafay. Very, very high level overview of what Rafay is. That is the slide format. So I'm going to kick it off by actually starting the other format, which is just the video. So I'm just going to start it here and show you what happens. Actually, I'm going to put it on mute. And I don't think I can forewind in it. So it'll actually keep going. And yeah, this is with animations and everything. For those who prefer learning through a video, that's what this video is all about. And then when it's done, you get credit for this. If you like watching, learning by watching, we have this mode. I'm not going to run the whole 20 minutes. You can't skip ahead. So I'm just going to exit out of this and just show you that if you were to not do, I'm just going to hit stop there. I'm going to go to the other one, which is the slide format. So again, track 1 has 2 formats or 2 modes. One is a video, which I just showed a moment ago. And then the other is with slides. And that's what I'm getting into right now. Again, remember, track 1 is Rafay overview. It's an overview of what Rafay is all about. The first 70% is the landscape, the lay of the land. What is Kubernetes? What are pods? What are deployments? What are services? And then we get into the challenges what the enterprises face, and then a very high level overview of Rafay. So when this track loads, you'll notice it's the same video with a text, with an audio voiceover, with an audio voiceover, and that's just the contents overview. If we look at the rest of it, this table of contents, this is where we are in the table of contents. I'm just going to hit next and go on to the next challenge. But this is basically how a customer would consume this particular training track. So yeah, this is the next slide, and here we get into Kubernetes overview, and so on and so forth. That's how this track 1 goes. Again, 70% or so on Kubernetes overview and the challenges that enterprises are facing, and then the last 30% high-level overview of what Rafay is. All right, now I'm going to stop that and show you our track 2. So track 2, 3, 4, and 5. These have labs. These have hands-on labs. And if you're someone technical and somebody hands-on, these are really, really fun and enjoyable. Let me just show you what track 2 is. I'm going to kick it off right now. It's one of the shorter ones. And this one goes into the controller itself, the Rafay controller, whether it's deployed from the SaaS model or whether it's deployed as a self-hosted. And the lab here, in the technical hands-on lab, you're going to be provisioning, or our customers, they provision an Amazon EKS cluster using the Rafay CLI. So I'm just going to kick this off. Again, it's got a little bit of a, it loads a sandbox, and then that's what's happening here for this minute. But again, at a very high-level overview, this is what's happening. The high-level overview of the architecture and of the controller itself, followed by what the Rafay controller does. There's also a Rafay hosted controller, like I mentioned. We call that the self-hosted controller. Sorry, there's a Rafay hosted one, and there's an option for customers to do it on their own premises. There is a step where we ask the user or the learner to onboard their account, and the reason is because then we can actually check their work, and we actually onboard them onto the Rafay organization. So each customer gets their own training organization, and I'll show you that in a moment. But again, from the perspective of Rafay internal training or Rafay internal employees, treating them as a customer. So that's the final lab. Just give it a few more seconds before we get into the next slide, which we call challenge. All right, so here we go. And here's the start of track 2. So in track 2, remember, it says Introduction to Rafay. This is really about the Rafay controller, the SaaS model of the controller. Again, audio overlay, audio voiceover with some text to read. And you can, if depending upon how familiar you are with Rafay, you could just click going next. You cannot skip ahead, right? We make sure that you have to do this in sequence. And here we are talking about the overall architecture of the Rafay controller. So these next buttons, which I'm clicking the bottom right, this is just, there's no work that you as a learner is actually doing, right? You're just reading and listening and learning by reading, learning by listening. Another way to learn is, of course, learning by doing. That is where the labs come into play. So I'm not going to keep hitting next. I'm going to actually change gears to a different window. This window here, this one with the purple background, is the same track, but now I've gone all the way down to the actual lab, connect to the controller. Now I'm at connect to the controller, and this is where the technical hands-on lab begins. So in the technical hands-on lab, what's happening is that you'll notice first and foremost at the bottom right corner, instead of next, it says check. And the reason is because to do this lab, you cannot proceed, you cannot go forward just by hitting next. You actually have to do the work. So for example, if I was a student that wanted to get credit just by hitting next, if I hit check button, you'll notice here, it immediately throws an error message, a very descriptive error message, an error message that pinpoints exactly what you need to do. Like in this case, RCTL has not been configured to run this particular command first. And how do you do that? It's all here on the lab guide. So the way this lab guide is written, on the far right side, there's introduction. We give you this lab guide. This is like a Rafay 101 course. I mean, we make it relatively easy to do it. If you just follow the lab guide, follow all the instructions, we have screenshots every step along the way, you will succeed. So there you go. This is what you needed to do. You needed to run this particular command after downloading this particular CLI config from the Rafay CLI. And then after that, I could do that, but then that's not all. I would have to add a cloud account. We show you exactly how to add a cloud account. And then after that, you cannot go forward without the actual lab, which is to build an EKS cluster. You do need to, and you're building the EKS cluster using the Rafay CLI. We could have had customers do this from the UI, but in this case, we said, CLI is fine. This is exactly how you do it. It takes about 30 minutes, and this is what we're looking for. And you can review it from the CLI. You can review it from the UI. And before I go any further, I just wanted to show you the actual Rafay UI. So that's what this link here is. The Rafay console, the Rafay UI, can be accessed from this link here. And in this case, it says here training. In the top right corner, I am logged in as Umair plus learner at Rafay.co. I am in the training organization. And there was a step in this process, which I skipped. I didn't really show. It's called account onboarding. Account onboarding, it asked me for my email address. I entered Umair plus learner at Rafay.co. And as a result of that, it created this project called Umair-43 learner-64-46 co, which is a way of taking my email address and making it into a project. And that's what you see here. Now, this is really where I would be doing all my work for the rest of this lab. So in this lab, all the remaining steps here to build this EKS cluster, if I were to do this, build the EKS cluster, it would show up here under my project, my unique project with a unique email address, unique to my organization. My organization is the training org, the training organization. And then, of course, we show customers how to check their progress of the EKS cluster from the CLI. We show them how to check it from the UI. And only after that's all been done is where the check button would work fine, it would succeed. So this is actually what I wanted to show. I mean, the actual creation of the cluster, like we mentioned over here, after you build a cluster, it can take up to 30 minutes. I don't want to do that. Waiting 30 minutes for the cluster to come up is not good. It's not the most exciting part. But this is really what I wanted to show, how you go along the way, the steps that you would take to learn how to build an EKS cluster using the Rafay. And this is just, again, our track 2, which is EKS cluster. Let me just exit out and show you where this is. This is track 2, the control overview. The lab here is the provision EKS cluster. Then there's track 3. This is the biggest one. This is where we have the learner provision a 2-stage GitOps pipeline. It's a really, really fun lab. And that's just GitOps services is one of many services that Rafay provides. So we have, again, the same sequence here, whole bunch of lectures, a lecture on a whole bunch of topics, a whole bunch of services. But then the actual lab is where we get into the GitOps pipeline, 2-stage pipeline. And you're using that to trigger some changes and see how it affects the cluster. Because there are 2 clusters and you deploy a namespace on it. It's a really fun lab. That's Rafay services. Cluster operations is where we have the learner get into blueprints. So they deploy blueprints and they apply it there. And then track 5, infrastructure compliance with Rafay. That's where we get into the network policy service. So one of the many services that Rafay provides, one of them is the network policy service. And that's what the lab is there. Again, there's a whole bunch of stuff on slides, on lecture topics. But then when we get to the technical challenge, that's where the labs start. So that's in a nutshell what our training looks like. This says internal employees. We have it very, very similar for every single customer that we have, which obviously I didn't want to show that. So yeah, Simon, do we have any questions from viewers?
Yes. So basically, let's say we have 5 different tracks available. So let's say if I done a track 2, like track 2 is actually basically a lab. So I completed the lab and I pause it here, and then the next day again I join in and I started the track number 3 in next day. So basically, in the instruct, all these credentials are just short-lived, and I
Yes,
think it has some
that's
time
correct.
expiration.
Yeah, see the top right corner, and that's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up. In the top right corner of every single track, we put in a timer, a countdown, a live countdown timer. In this case, track 2 has a time limit of 3 hours. So you have 3 hours to do this track. It doesn't say that it will take you 3 hours. It's self-paced, right? So how much time you need. But honestly, with this many, like maybe 8 or 9 slides, and that can be, depending upon the pace, it could be done in half an hour or less. And then the lab itself, well, we just saw that EKS cluster takes about half an hour to deploy. Maybe you do it and you get familiarize yourself with the Rafay UI, add on another half hour. So maybe an hour and a half or so, or maybe 2 hours max. We give you 3 hours. What this means is after 3 hours, the credentials, and at a later stage, actually, the credentials are shown. I don't think I've shown it here. Oh no, if I hit continue, yeah, you'll see it there. So every single track that is launched has a sandbox. And in this case, you have to deploy an EKS cluster. Well, where are the credentials? Where's the account and all for that EKS cluster? It's coming from Instruct. Instruct provides this set of credentials. They provide the AWS account. It's short-lived. As soon as this track is terminated, it's stopped, these credentials will no longer be valid. So they provide the programmatic access, the access key ID, and the secret access key. And I don't have to worry about this being shared because as soon as I hit exit and stop, everything will be torn down automatically by Instruct. So I don't have to worry about that. That's the beauty of this. In this case, this one was launched a little bit earlier. That's why you say that's why you see it's 2 hours and 21 minutes in the top right corner, the one in purple, but the one in red is 2 hours and 51 minutes remaining. Does that answer the question? Yeah. Sorry.
Yes, another question is
Yeah, go ahead.
if you go back to the purple screen, we can see the text editor. So can you
Yeah.
explain?
Yes. So in this one, what we are saying is build an EKS cluster from the CLI. And we say you can use the terminal or the text editor tabs. And it's up to the user whether they prefer using text editor like Nano or VI. But we also provide this text editor. The text editor comes with Instruct. The benefit of that is that it has line numbers, and line numbers are useful when we want to tell the user, hey, edit this particular line 5 or line 6. Maybe in some labs we provide the the file with a few places where they need to make changes, make modification. We say modify line 6, modify line 18, and that's why this text editor is good. You can do that in VI or Nano as well. In VI, I think you have to actually put on a flag. You have to run an operative like set SENU, and that'll do that. That's really what the benefit of this text editor is. It's really up to the user what they want to use, VI or Nano.
Yes, absolutely. Another question, like if let's say if we have a team lead who want to educate, let's say 10 different trainer within their team using the Instruct Lab account, is there a unique link they need to identify? Like if I let's say if I'm a customer at the Rafay and I want to educate my 10 employees using the Instruct Lab, so how as an employee I can actually rotate instruct invite to different people? Do I have a one invite and share everybody to the other, or is there a certain criteria of sending the let's say invite for asking people to go to the instruct and complete the certification?
Yeah. Right now we are doing we're keeping close tabs on attendance and participation. So every single email address from the customer is added to the invite for that customer. So every customer gets a unique invite, and then every employee who needs training is added to that invite. It's not a wild card. What you're seeing right now is a wild card, and that's why I'm on Rafay.co, and so anybody with a Rafay.co can access the internal training, but it's not like that for our external customers. It is a single link which has the whole suite of tracks, and that those tracks are these 5 tracks. Remember, track 1 has video and non-video.
Yes, and another question, and might be the last of them, is like if the customer is actually playing with the Instruct and going to the Rafay and actually is playing with the Instruct and Lab, and they find some issues or they find some suggestions or they want a particular section within the lab, or they want to see like, if the lab track is too long or too short, or lab track is too easy or too difficult. How do they get a feedback so we can behind the scene can improve upon?
Sure. So every track, we tell the user what the track is all about, but then the last 2 lines are always documentation. Yeah, I mean, it's a lab guide, but the lab guide, access to the lab guide is very short-lived. It's only for the duration of that track. In this case, it's 180 minutes. But we also say for the feedback, email training@rafay.co. So training@rafay.co, and this is the case for any track. So if I were to go to, let's say, track 5, for example, same thing, Rafay documentation, email training@rafay.co for any questions. I should also put in feedback, questions, feedback, anything. This is the feedback, training@rafay.co.
Yes, and I think the last question is like if people or employees who get certified by Rafay, you give them a creditly badges so they can actually show to their team leads I have done with certification, or they actually add into your let's say LinkedIn as an recommendation, a recognition like I have experience with Rafay Kubernetes operational platform, and here I done a certification as well. So can you tell me about the how you actually people get the badges?
Oh, this is another great question. Thanks, because Yeah. So right now, I mean, it's so new that I'm checking this literally every day, every few hours. I'm checking the completion. That's why, I know with many other sites, sometimes it takes days. It is not automated, but it is manual. But I'm doing this every few hours, and I'm seeing who has completed it. Basically, all you have to do is complete all 5 tracks. And for track one, again, it doesn't matter if you like video, if you like non-video with text, slides, doesn't matter. You just complete all 5 tracks. That is what is needed in order to get the Rafay Certified Associate certification, which is that thing with, from our website, go to company on the top right, and then Rafay certification. That's what earns you this. In a self-paced mode, many of our customers who take live instructor-led training have also gotten this certification. That format is slightly different. It's not self-paced, but the content is about the same. So if complete the 5 tracks, you get the certification. And then that certification, Rafay Certified Associate, is what we have. We mentioned it here in the blogs. I think I have this blog here fairly recently. Here we go. It was on April 25th, where we mentioned here that we have partnered with Credly. And so that's where we issue a digital badge to from Credly. Credly has like 95% of the market of IT certifications, so they get the digital badge. This is what the badge looks like, and then you can do the verified by. You can verify, put it on your LinkedIn, and you get verified.
Yes, absolutely. And the final question, let's say if I think if there are some customers who want to educate or train on particular specified area, like say they knew how to do zero trust security, they understand the the employees are very educated on how to do zero trust security with Rafay, but they are actually very relative new to understanding how to configure network policies within the Rafay. So if those are the cases, if they only want to learn and educate themselves for the particular specified area, so as of today, can you specify what is the track they should use, or actually they can skip the 4 3 tracks and go to the jump to the 5th track and try to understand how the network policy flow?
Yeah,
Is
I
this
mean,
work?
this is training. So I mean, end users, learners can take what they want of it. Maybe a customer has some folks who may not be technical, maybe they're management level or whatever. They just want to. They need. They just care about track one. So track one is the high level overview. But if they do care about network policy, then yeah, this track 5. Oops, I started it. Track 5 is really what would be relevant for that person. So it is a la carte. What I mean by a la carte is you can pick whatever you want, but completing all 5 would get you the certification.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. That makes perfect sense now. Like if you can skip ahead, jump ahead, you can actually skip the lecture, go to the lab, you can do it. You can skip the module track, go jump to the 5, you can do it. But in order to take certifications, you need to
Yes.
complete all the lab in order to get a Credly badge. That is requirement for the certification. But for the
Yes.
learning purposes, you can actually log in as many times. You can actually go to the section that I really like about Rafay services. The integration of the GitOps pipeline is really fun to do. Is like you actually have a Git is configured with the Rafay CI, Rafay COP, and then you actually do a GitOps way of doing it. Is have a manual step, and the CD pipeline is a very fun to watch lab as well.
Yes, it is. It
So
is.
absolutely. And without, before I let you go, Umar, what's the next plan for the customers? Like, is there
Oh,
anything
yeah,
we
yeah.
actually
If
planning?
you're interested, so this is all fine. How do I get certified? You get certified with the training. How do I get training? Or you have to be a customer at this time. How do I become a customer? Let's talk about that. Is all from the same page. Go to company Rafay certification. Right, that's this page here, and the call to action here would be to try out Rafay. How do you get access to Rafay? Just sign up on this link here. Sign up now, and that's how you start for free. If you want to access the Rafay platform and get a feel for enterprise grade Kubernetes operations platform, this is the way to start. This is the call to action.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I think another way to think about certification is that if you are the team lead, if you're team lead, if you are a customer and you are the team lead, and you want to educate your trainers about certain topics like network policy or GitOps, or let's say the policy engine, you can go to our labs, create a video, put them on your YouTube channel, share them with your colleague, and then is actually this is how you can actually your education flows as well. Because before these uh, hands-on instruct, you create a Kubernetes cluster, you install, let's say, Istio service mesh, you install a policy engine, and then you educate your trainers about how you actually do these kind of activities. But with instruct, cluster is available, Istio is installed, and you just actually pick and choose the command line to let them know. So there's a various way to think and various way to get advantages of certifications. And I think you have to think about how you can actually get the most benefit out of that. So that's all we have for today. So we will meet again in future. And let me rewind what we discussed today. So Rafay uniquely powers four key enterprise needs for Kubernetes: turnkey cluster provisioning and lifecycle management, multi-cluster standardization and add-on management, bi-modal multi-tenancy support with self-service, and zero trust-based multi-cluster access for DevOps and SREs. And we know the biggest challenge in Kubernetes industry is not platform engineering versus DevOps, is continue to be a skill set problem. And that's the primary reason why we announced our certification program. And today, Omar Hoodboy will give us a live walkthrough, and he actually have a Q&A session with us to help our customer understand and to be able to perform basic cluster lifecycle management, achieve compliance, GitOps, service mesh, and network policy. And we will be meeting again soon in future as well with as the things evolve in the Rafay Kubernetes operation platform. But once again, thank you very much, Umar, for
Thank you.
sharing your insight and spending time with us. Stay safe, stay healthy. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye bye.
Okay, bye bye.